much. What a great start. What a great start. Absolutely, absolutely. And you made us glad for the day, so thank you. Thank you all for being here. It's a great privilege and a great pleasure to be moderating this panel. We'll get straight into the discussion. I wanted to first begin by asking each one of our discussants about Bob Dylan and where Bob Dylan or how Bob Dylan actually fits into their craft, how Bob Dylan has actually influenced their worldview, their writing, their poetry, their music. So perhaps we could begin with Prasoon, Shantanu, Ali, and then Lou, once you've recovered from this amazing performance.
Yeah, I was always recovered for
Great.
25 hours.
Great. So Prasoon, if you could.
Good morning to everyone. Thank you for being here. It was a great performance, and I could see everyone's face lighting up. And when you look at Bob Dylan, and when the Nobel Prize was announced for him, I immediately wrote a piece for a newspaper. And because there is something one finds resonating with his idea of life. For a change, a common man on the street could identify with who has won the Nobel Prize. Yeah. Because we've normally seen there is a huge distance between what gets celebrated in a closed room and a closed club and what is associated on the street. Yeah. There are two parallel worlds. We are getting surprised with a lot of decisions people are making, be it political, be it artistic, and we're surprised that how this parallel world is existing, because somehow what has happened is art has been celebrated in closed rooms, in closed clubs. Even in India, you look at classical music. A lot of classical musician friends and elders who lament the fact that the loss of alap gone away. People don't have patience to listen to something as slow as alap, and there is a pressure to quickly come to drut, to the fast-paced part of classical music. The problem is that when those people were celebrating music, they were having their bataks in closed rooms. There was somebody who's serving them their snacks and their wines and everything. That person actually couldn't associate and understand what was happening here. Why are these people, what is this, jo daad de rahe hain, ye kis cheez pe de rahe hain? Why are they saying wow, wow to everything? What was so special about it? And for last half an hour, this guy is just on one sur, and he was not, you never tried to include a lot of people into what was happening, and you felt that, and there was a sense of condescension to it. And so it got, वो महदूद कहीं तक limit हो गया वो. It got sort of contained in a part. And he went into his house and he took a dholak out and he started singing Munni Badnaam Hui, which coexisted. And when it comes into mainstream, you get surprised. Where is this gali coming from? Where is this coming from? It always existed. It's just a part of our society, never looked at it and never understood. When somebody like Bob Dylan comes up, you realize there is a bridge which gets built between the common man, between people, and the condescension of art. There is something which is so deliciously poised there that you got to celebrate that. Right. That builds a bridge, that excites you. And I think this book, when I published Sunshine Lanes, my idea for this book is that I've got a lot of poetry published before that, and I published this book especially to bring out the Bollywood songs of mine, which I feel have literary quality. We cannot write off popular culture work with, this sort of highbrow and high art lens and say that this can't be celebrated because this represents popular culture. Just because it's popular, it can't become, you can't hold it against that work. So there's a lot of work, and especially in our country, where so many prominent poets, like Sahir Saab, like a lot of these people who has actually come out and written for popular culture, popular work. And this work needs to be understood. There is somewhere in the cusp this work resides. And when Bob Dylan gets celebrated, you realize that this work can also have literary quality, and high time we come out from our high ground and start accepting that work and celebrating that work. And that's why I was exceptionally delighted with the decision.
Shantanu?
When I was around 11, 12 years old, I heard a song, a Bengali song. বলো আর কত দূর সে বইছে যে ঢেউ মানুষ যে মানুষ হবে নয় সে জবা বাতাসে বন্ধু নয় সে জবাব বাতাসে 2 years later on All India Radio I heard a song which sounded like this Bengali song. The song was Blowing in the Wind. And then the curiosity was, who is this guy? And then I saw a photograph of Bob Dylan. And it's important where I saw it. I saw it in Connaught Place on the footpath with a poster of Samantha Fox. On the footpath, there was Samantha Fox and there was Bob Dylan. I said, oh my God, this guy wrote this song? This young, dark glasses, complete dude. In my head, there was this 60, 65-year-old man who must have written this song. Mind you, in all this, I did not understand what the song was about. I just loved the song. We often love songs because we love songs. I didn't do R&D, research on it. I was not matured. Ever since then, almost every 2 years, I keep on discovering Bob Dylan. I start understanding new words, new sentences, new metaphors. So pretty much Bob Dylan has been part of my life, and protest became cool. If I wanted to look like him, and I had just started playing the guitar, it was minimalistic, just a guitar, a mouth organ, didn't require a band. I used to jabardasti look for protest reasons. Kya kare? Pocket money nahi mila, so let's protest. Think like that. I didn't realize Bob Dylan became part of me. Many of the songs that I started composing later on, I had that flavor. The point here is that I have never read anything anywhere where Bob Dylan gave a line saying, I wrote a protest song called Blowing in the Wind. He never said that. Today's world, today's media, we always have to give a headliner to the work that we do. That we are doing this kind of work, that kind of work. He never did that. You discover it the way it is. And there is an elusive nature to this man. He's sometimes there, mostly he's not there. He's always been upstart, he's always been crazy, like to read about him. But at the end of it, I think something he does, some masala he puts, that even a person who does not understand literature seems to know his songs, seems to hum his songs. And at the end of it, I just genuinely feel that of the all Nobel Prize literature winners till now, his is the only work that I know before he won the Nobel Prize. Thank you.
Very true. Ali, if you could tell us from the perspective of your poetry. It should be on.
Way. Nailu ini Ali Kobi Ekman, Nailu Walacha ini Yankantara. My name is Ali. My family is Yankantara from Aboriginal Australia. For me, poetry comes from the indigenous, from the Adivasi, from the earth. And in my family, the original poets were the old songmen and dancemen, that their legacy still exists of handing down songs from at least 50,000 years ago. Aboriginal Australia has been proved by science as the oldest Indigenous culture still surviving in the world. So a true celebration of life and the relationship of Mother Earth and Father Sky, and how that influences human nature. So I mention that because my grandmother lived naked out in the desert, which is our traditional land. My mother lived naked out in the desert until the age of 5, when the British were given permission to do atomic testing and changed our family history. I guess when I was listening to Bob Dylan, it was in my teenage years as an adopted Aboriginal girl living in Australia, because I wasn't allowed to live with my mother, and when I was a teenager my son was removed from me. So when I listened to Bob Dylan, there was always a lot of drugs involved, mostly marijuana. And we talk about popular culture, and I guess that was the time in my life when I was looking for popular things to bring into Australian society. I guess I'm wary of the word popular because the government made it popular to remove Aboriginal children from their family. And so I caution popular because popular does not always mean right. I think I don't question the lifetime achievement and the lifetime influence of Bob Dylan, but I question the Nobel Peace Prize for Literature because I always listened to Bob Dylan. I never read Bob Dylan, and for me, literature and reading are more associated than literature and listening. So in my latter teenage years, my early 20s, I also tried to hang out with bohemian culture because, you know, it was cool. The men were better charismatic than non-bohemian men, long hair, glasses, yeah, still the marijuana smoking was very tempting. But for Aboriginal people in Australia, the bohemian was more for survival. So there was thousands of people like myself, young men and women, who were creating our own bohemian way of gathering, because it was through word of mouth, those gatherings, that maybe we could find our families and return to who we were born to be. So sitting under the trees, sitting in the parks, was a revolutionary act. One of our Stolen Generation songwriter-singers is Archie Roach. If you don't know Archie Roach, you should YouTube Archie Roach. His songs sing for the heart. He was 3 or 4 years of age when he was removed from his family for no reason. Actually, I had the privilege of seeing Archie perform with Rodriguez, the Sugar Man, the night before I got on the plane. And I guess for me, those two musicians had more of an effect because their grassroots status. I think with the reference to revolution, we cannot mention that word without the mention of Fidel Castro. May he rest in peace. I just want to make the comment that, you know, the pros and the cons for revolution in, you know, what the media is talking about him at the moment. I've seen a lot of media talking about the death toll created by Castro. I want to make the statement that democracy never seems to own its death toll, whether by suicide, poverty, pollution, nuclear atrocity. I'm sure the death toll from democracy is far higher than a man who stood for his beliefs.
Well, you certainly stoked the fires of revolution here. Lou, if you could now tell us, you have devoted so many years to Bob Dylan, and obviously you have this very passionate relationship with his music, with what his persona. Tell us how you fell in love with Bob Dylan.
Well, I mean, like, I'm not that kinky to fall in love with Bob Dylan. But definitely, I mean, like, I fell in love with his writings. Because any sane or slightly insane person would have definitely done that. But after listening to all the, the sharing from our two gentlemen and the two beauties over here, I mean, like, who am I? I'm just a high school kid. I dropped out of school. I never did like school. So I don't know anything about literature. So I don't know anything of the, heavy-duty kind of stuff. But I definitely enjoy reading. I definitely love reading. And music, it's something which is a very comforting friend to me. So the early years which I was in the boarding school, an orphanage kind of stuff like that, but they call it boarding school. Then by the time, I think it was in my teens. Anyway, I was born 1947, before India's independence. So when I left Shillong, when I left home, when I left my mother and everyone in that family, not because I was searching for, for life, not because I was searching for hope, not because I was searching for love. I was not searching for anything. I am a dreamer, so I just keep on moving, kind of stuff like that. Listening to Jim Reeves, in the 50s and 60s, and listening to Elvis, listening to Tom Jones, listening to Rolling Stones, to Beatles and kind of stuff like that. But it was, maybe it was destiny, which I can say now, that drew me to this city of joy called Calcutta then, now it's Kolkata. So, not because, I was drawn to it because of the music, because of the art, or because of the bright lights of the city, because being just a village boy, something different. But I sort of ran away from reality. I ran away from the nightmare of reality. I was so shit scared. I ran away from it. So that's how I got into guitar playing, which is the best friend I ever have, and the best friend I will ever have. So I am not even a guitar player. I'm not even a singer. Forget about a songwriter. Forget about being a poet. But people, they seem to like what Lou Majau does with the guitar. People, they seem to like with what Lou Majau sings. So I guess I was stuck with that. But it was one night when we had a party, with all the good and not so good whiskey and all the beautiful boyfriends, girlfriends, and all the cigarette smoking and without the cigarette smoking as well. I heard a song, and that kind of voice which is unique. Because after listening to Paul Anka, listening to Boy Vivi and everything like that, the sweet, sweet voice, but we hear this guy, that nasal kind of stuff like that. But it's the words that really drew me. Then I asked the host, I said, oh, give me the record. So he gave me the record, and over there's written Bob Dylan. I said, okay, so this is the man. So from that time, that was way back in 1965. So from that time I said, hey, this is the man. This is the man. So that has been playing on with me for 66, 67, 68, 69, 70 after I came from my trip from Kathmandu, the beautiful paradise then. Then the decision came to me that yes, I have to write a letter to this man. But then I said, oh shit, it sounds very funny, writing a letter kind of stuff. Then I just decided that, okay, let me celebrate his birthday without him knowing it. So that happened in 1972. So that's what happened right from 1972, 24th of May, till date. So
That's
so-
interesting. One sense I'm getting from everyone's perspectives on Dylan is this tension, first and foremost, his importance to the world of protest. But then there's also this tension in his work, which all of you have addressed somewhere, the dynamic between hope and anger, or between anger and reconciliation or forgiveness. So perhaps if we could just have quick thoughts from you all about that dynamic and how your own work plays into that as well. There's several things, you know, I remember when you wrote about Bob Dylan, you said there's so many things to protest and be revolutionary about in India today, Prasoon. And your work has also looked at some of those topics. But this dynamic between being hopeful, being angry, and being forgiving.
That's, I think you've said it. See, poet is not selective in his or her reaction to what is happening around you. You are sensitive to everything which is happening around you. And you pick up your pen when something moves you. Is there anger? Of course there is. But of course, the reason you pick up the pen is that probably I would be able to make a difference. Or even if not that big, I want to share this feeling. Otherwise, you can keep that feeling to yourself. But you want to share that feeling almost like letting that load off you. It could be as selfish as this. And without being too lofty and altruistic about it, it could be very basic as that if I don't express it, I can't sleep. I remember I wrote this when the girls won the Olympic medals, and it did a lot of rounds in social media. The poem is, again, it's not a protest poem, but I think we very narrowly define protest. It could be a feeling against your own father. It could be something that you saw just in a relationship. Protest could be of various natures. It doesn't always have to be for a large movement which is happening in the country. It could be something very, very personal to you, but there is a protest even a young boy has towards his teacher. So I wrote about this, that the girl child, it's called Sharm aa rahi hai na. शर्म आ रही है ना उस समाज को जिसने उसके जन्म पर खुलकर जश्न नहीं मनाया। शर्म आ रही है ना उस पिता को जिसने उसके होने पर एक दिया कम जलाया। शर्म आ रही है ना उन रस्मों को, उन रिवाजों को, उन बेड़ियों को, उन दरवाजों को। शर्म आ रही है ना उन बुजुर्गों को जिन्होंने उसके अस्तित्व को सिर्फ अंधेरों से जोड़ा। शर्म आ रही है ना उन दुपट्टों को, उन लिबासों को जिन्होंने उसे अंदर से तोड़ा। शर्म आ रही है ना स्कूलों को, दफ्तरों को, रास्तों को, मंजिलों को। शर्म आ रही है ना उन शब्दों को, उन गीतों को जिन्होंने उसे कभी शरीर से ज्यादा नहीं समझा। शर्म आ रही है ना राजनीति को, धर्म को, जहां बार बार अपमानित हुए उसके स्वप्न। शर्म आ रही है ना खबरों को, मिसालों को, दीवारों को, भालों को। शर्म आनी चाहिए ऐसे हर विचार को, शर्म आनी चाहिए जिसने पंख काटे थे उसके। शर्म आनी चाहिए ऐसे हर ख्याल को, शर्म आनी चाहिए जिसने रोका था उसे आसमान की तरफ देखने से। शर्म आनी चाहिए शायद हम सबको, क्योंकि जब मुट्ठी में सूरज लिए नन्ही सी बिटिया सामने खड़ी थी, तब हम उसकी उंगलियों से छलकती रोशनी नहीं, उसका लड़की होना देख रहे थे। उसकी मुट्ठी में था आने वाला कल, और हम सब देख रहे थे मटमैला आज। पर सूरज को तो धूप खिलाना था, बेटी को तो सवेरा लाना था और सुबह होकर रही. Is there a protest here? Yes, it is. Is it personal? Yes, it is. But is it universal? At the same time, it becomes universal. So I think, even when we discuss Bob Dylan, we somehow define, and a lot of people, and last time also at the Tata Literature Festival, the same topic we were talking about, and there were two eminent poets from England. And the question was, in India, you see, the acceptance of Bob Dylan's being awarded is easier because we define poetry in a very large sense, because before poetry was written, actually poetry was celebrated here in oral tradition much more. And sometimes we take oral tradition very lightly. I mean, you look at our folk songs. Our folk songs had a certain protest. When a girl sings, Kahe ko byahi bides, then she is also protesting. She is not allowed to talk to the father that, why are you marrying me off? Bhaiya ko deene mahal dumahal, mujhko deeno pardes. She's also telling that you sending me off. You've given everything, all property, everything to the son. She said everything in this. This is a folk song, but at the same time, it's a protest song. So we have seen a huge tradition of this with the people who were illiterate. Kabir, who was a person who couldn't read and write, wrote a lot of poetry in this country, which is celebrated till today. So even if it's not read, we have no problem. We definitely have problem with the quality of it, the quality of thought, the quality of precision of meter and everything. But written text is, if you define it so narrowly, a lot of work in this country would be done injustice to. And that is the reason I think a folk song I wrote, which Shantanu composed, called Babul. I'll hum a little bit of that. Again, you see the same protest is there. I don't know how many of you have heard that. It's a girl talking to the father, and probably she has not spoken. And inspired by the tradition of folk music, I wrote this long back and dedicated it to Nirbhaya when that thing happened. The girl says, Babul jiya mura ghabraye, Babul jiya mura ghabraye, bin bole raha na jaye, bin bole raha na jaye, Babul jiya mura ghabraye, Babul mori itni araj sun lijo, मोहे सुनार के घर ना दीजो, मोहे सोनार के घर ना दीजो, मोहे जेवर कभी न भाए, बाबुल जिया मुरा घबराए, बाबुल मोरी इतनी अरज सुन लीजो, मोहे राजा घर ना दीजो, मोहे राजा घर ना दीजो, मोहे राज न करना आए, बाबुल जिया मुरा घबराए, बाबुल रे बाबुल मोरी इतनी अरज सुन लीजो, मोहे लोहार के घर दे दीजो, मोहे लोहार के घर दे दीजो, जो मोरी जंजीरें पिघलाए, बाबुल जिया मुरा घबराए.
Wow. We're running very tight on time, so I'm just now, of course, Shantanu and Ali, both of you have to sing as well now. But just, your thoughts very quickly to close the session on Bob Dylan music.
Obviously, India is not alien to protest songs. Largest democracy in the world. We have had a pretty interesting past. I just want to make a point about the song and poetry. what role each plays with a small piece of history which I'll share with all of you. So both Mahatma Gandhi and Tagore had a very interesting relationship. They had respect, but they were also adversaries. Tagore was not in sync with many of Mahatma Gandhi's policies, and they had constantly these conversations, and Tagore was completely blatant about some of the things which Mahatma Gandhi was doing. But on one such occasion, when Dandi March was announced and had a very low turnout, people didn't want to be, I don't know, somehow they didn't kind of understand what was Dandi March, what was happening. So Mahatma Gandhi wrote a letter to Tagore saying, I'm very sad today that people not understanding my vision. I feel failed, and Mahatma Gandhi used to get very, very emotional and almost become, I don't want to be part of this anymore. And he wrote this letter to Tagore saying that I don't want to be part of this anymore. And Tagore wrote a poem to him in a reply, whose main line was, Jodi tor ডাক শুনে কেউ না আসে তবে একলা চলো রে. So Mahatma Gandhi was very impressed and says, do one thing, we will publish this poem. He said, no, we'll make a song out of this. And he said, why do we want to make a song out of this? He said, because a song can reach places where my poem can't. So therefore he made this line, যদি তোর ডাক শুনে কেউ না আসে তবে একলা চলো রে, যদি তোর ডাক শুনে কেউ না আসে তবে একলা চলো রে, তোর কেউ কথা না কয় ওরে ওরে ও অভাগা, কেউ কথা না কয় ওরে, সবাই মিছে বন্ধু রাতে জ্বলতে সে তোর বার, যদি একলা চলো রে, যদি তোর ডাক শুনে কেউ না আসে তবে একলা চলো রে.
Lovely, lovely, lovely. If you keep singing like that, you will not walk Akla. I can assure you of that, Shantanu. Ali, you have to sing. Or if you'd like to recite, and then we'll close.
Yeah, I just had a thought. I wonder whether Bob Dylan was more happier about getting the Nobel Peace Prize, the Literature Prize, or whether he was happier that Donald Trump didn't use his music in the campaign trail. This poem's called Urban Drift. We were nomads, now we drift to an urban skyline. Will civilization greet us with courtesy and a respect of our culture be our reward? The crux of Cosmopolitan is a crisscross of shopping malls. Where have all the trees gone? Our children stand pale inside the zoo. Their feet can no longer mark the earth. We watch their happiness begin to fade. In the park, an old black man refuses to smile, his only consolation, a lap full of birds. I think Dylan would want the legacy of his words and his music to be that when music and poetry touches your heart, when it moves you, when you can remember exactly where you were when you first heard that song or read that poem, that is a place of kindness, because poetry is the music of the soul, and I think that's the place where kindness lives. I'm sort of a little jealous that in India, when someone sings a song, many people know it, and there's many languages here. The 220 years of colonisation in Australia has robbed Aboriginal Australia a lot of that. I think when Cook arrived, Captain Cook arrived, there was nearly 300 languages. We're down to like 15. And so there's some places where when we sing and perform and dance and celebrate in our language, it is a long, long, long way away from the government's eyes. Our children can't learn in language. We have not really had Aboriginal schools. We don't have Aboriginal church. there is a big loss. So I just say that because we know the loss, and you should fight that you never have that loss.
Absolutely.
And I'd just like to say that it'll be a blessed day when a poet-author wins an award for music.
Very well said. Lou, can you please sing us just 2 lines from Blowing in the Wind? Please, 2 lines, just 2 lines, and then we're going to wrap.
It's a song that is in everyone's heart and everyone's soul and everyone's mind. How many roads must a man walk down before they call him a man? And that's it. You know, see, because music, poetry, and songs, it is one magic which one bears his soul. And to share it with others, to share your hopes and dreams, that completes the circle in life for the oneness.
Lovely. Thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure and a privilege to be on this session with you all. Thank you, audience. We won't be taking questions. We're completely out of time. But I'm sure you can meet the authors and poets and Lou at the author's tent afterwards. Thank you so much again. What a great session.